Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the 1974 TR6 that we are restoring here on the Rusty Beauties channel. And we're back on assembling the engine. In the last episode we degreed the camshaft and it went so easy that I couldn't even show you all the tricks to adjust it because it went right on the first time. So anyways, we're gonna show you more on the timing next time when we time an engine, which is going to be really soon because I'm working on another one at home, as you know. So anyways, let's see what we're going to do in this episode. So in this episode, I think we should start assembling the head. We have all the springs, all the components here. We have the new valves that we already lapped. Under the rocker cover we have the rocker shaft that we replaced, and everything is assembled there already. So we have to only put everything back together and put it on its spot where it belongs. So this is everything that we took out of the valve train. Not everything, because we also took out these seals, which I'm not gonna reuse. So these are aftermarket seals. TR6 or in general Triumphs don't come with valve seals. The engine is designed this way, and that's how I'm gonna put this one back together, because I don't like those valve seals. They prevent oil from going into the valve guide, and we need a little bit of oil there for the valve not to wear. So I believe that this actually creates more trouble than it helps. Well, we burn a little bit of oil, but that's normal it's a Triumph. Anyways, I'm also not sure why I have a single spring setup here, but that's how it was, so that's how I'm gonna assemble it. So I organized the parts here as they're gonna go. The collars here for the exhaust valves are two. We have inner and outer. So the inner goes into the outer, and that goes on top of the spring like this. For the intake, we have just a single one that goes like this. So I organized them here by pattern so I don't mix them. So we have exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. And we have the head in the same way. This is number 6 cylinder, so number 1 is here, and we have the valves there that we lapped already, so we just need to install them now. Okay, so I'm gonna start with number 12 because it's the closest to you, and this is our number 12. I have them in the bin, organized this in order after I lap them so we don't mix them. Each one goes exactly where it was lapped. So we're putting some assembly loop here. And there you go. Then we have our bottom collar, which base is the same for all 12 valves. Then we have the spring. For the exhaust we have the double collar here, which is one outer, one inner. I'm gonna put a piece of wood underneath in the combustion chamber so it don't, just to protect it a little bit. And with our homemade spring compressor, valve spring compressor, which is basically a long ridge clamp with a washer welded at the end. Now we can press. We don't want it to go too deep though. So let me adjust it. Yeah. And we can install our valve keepers. We can install our keepers here. There you go. And then let go. And that's it. one installed. Let's do the rest. Number 11. Okay. Base, spring, single floor, and then compressor. And then what I like to do is just put a socket on top and give them a little smack. Just a little, so if there's something that is not in place, it's gonna fall right into place, or it's gonna fly across the room. That's the other option. But I think we're fine here. Alright, we're ready with all the valves. Everything went well. I lost one keeper actually, so I had to go and dig another one from our spare parts. I don't know where it went. But anyways, it's assembled, so now we can put it on the block and say bye-bye to our pistons because we're not gonna see them anymore. Before we put that though, it's don't ask me how I know, we need to drop in our tappets, because we only have 2 in the first cylinder, which we put for the timing, but now we have to install the other 10, put the studs on, and then we can put the head on. Alright, so next we have to install our cylinder head studs. And we have a whole bunch of them that are shorter, and we have 2 that are longer. To be honest, as far as I know, there must be one longer, which comes here in this corner, and that's because it holds the... Not really sure what it holds. But I don't know where the second one goes, so I'm just gonna put it here. I don't know. Also, they have a longer thread on one side and shorter on the other side. So the shorter one is which goes into the block. I'm just starting them now, and then I'm gonna finish putting them all the way in till the end of the threads. You're probably yelling at me right now, telling me exactly where this one goes. Well, I'm sorry, that's where it goes for me now. So I just put them finger tight. They don't need to be super tight because the nut on top is what is gonna create the torque later. I'm just going all the way in until there's no more threads. Next is the head gasket. So I'm just gonna make sure that all the passages here for water and oil, for that matter, are matching a hole on the gasket. So we have 3 holes, 2 holes, actually 3 holes here and 3 holes here. And here again we have 1, 2, 3. Uh-oh. There's no hole here. There's no hole here. Well, that's interesting because here on cylinder number 6 have 2 holes, then 5, 4, 3 and 2 have 1 hole each, and number 1 has 2 holes again. But on the cylinder head we only have 1 hole per cylinder. That is getting me confused now. This is a different pattern here on the head. So here we only have 1, but we have this extra hole which is not on the block, but we have a hole here. Then for the next one we have 1, 2, 3, and here we have those 3. Then we have one without any holes, and then we have 1, 2, 3. But here we have one with this hole, and then we have 1, 2, 3, and then again we have one hole here, but we don't have this one here. But here we have it between the two studs, and we don't have the one there. So that's weird. Let me take a look at the other heads that we have. We don't have the hole here, but we have it here, but it looks like it's never been used because look, it's full of stuff where these were open. And this one as well. The hole is here instead of here. So all the heads that we have are the same. What about this block? But this block that we have from the old engine, again, it has these two holes, but it doesn't have one here. That's weird. Alright, so we determined that there's some discrepancies here between the block and the head actually, but obviously that's how all TR6s are, because I checked our old block, I checked the two other heads that we have, and they're all like this. So that is why there's no hole on the gasket here and here, because this hole doesn't even match with the head anyways. So we're gonna assume that that's okay. So now the gasket can go either way. This way it's gonna match, I guess, and this way it's gonna match, but here on this side the metal rings are sticking out further than on this side. Also here we have channel for this metal part to fit in, but I can also see this tab here, which is matching more or less here at the engine. So these are all my reasons why I believe that the gasket needs to go this way. Anyways, another thing here is everybody has different opinion here whether we should put gasket maker or not, and I think the opinions are 50-50, but as you may know, I'm a real fan of this gasket maker, Permatex Aviation Forma gasket, and I'm just gonna put it. If the opinions are 50-50, then I'm okay going either way. Oh my God. Alright guys, so I just torqued all the bolts and I was getting ready to install the rocker shaft when I realized that I didn't record that. So I'm not gonna undo it to do it again, but just so you know, the torque spec here is 80 pounds for the head studs, and I went first to 60 foot-pounds. I went through the entire pattern here, and then I adjusted my torque wrench to 80, and I torqued them up to 80 the second time. So the pattern is always start from the center and then go in spiral motion through the entire head, like that. You know what I mean? First row in the center, then these two, and then the last ones go last, of course. Anyways, let's keep going with the next step here. So I put the push rods in, and they have to go in before the rocker shaft. I put the studs for the rocker shaft, and now let's put the rocker shaft in, which might not be very easy because we took out everything and put it back on. So on the pedestals, well, they are in the right place. I thought they weren't going to be in the right place, but we somehow managed to put them where they belong. Okay. Okay, from here we're going to pull it down gently with the nuts but we don't want to force it one side all the way while the other one is still up, because we might bend it, and we don't want that. So we have to go a little bit at a time on all of them until it goes all the way down. And in the meantime, we need to watch the push rods, because they might stay out of the rocker. They need to be right under the rocker, right? Okay, and as you can see, some of the valves are already open, like we have to adjust them later. And we're gonna adjust them to the correct lash here. And yeah, for now, I'm just gonna put the studs for the cover, and we're gonna move on to something else. Well, of course, we shouldn't forget our freeze plugs that are not freeze plugs. So now there's only one freeze plug remaining, and that's the one here at the end of the camshaft. Like we said, we're gonna install it later. We are pretty much done at the top. So let's see what we can do on this side. Here actually, we can't do much other than the oil filter adapter and the oil pressure relief valve. We can't do much. So anyways, let's do this. So here we have to make sure that we have a ring. We have to make sure that there's only one seal there, because I've seen multiple engines where there are two seals, and that only makes things worse. Then the adapter, because this engine came with an oil filter adapter, so I'm just gonna use it. The oil filter needs to point down, I guess, or a little bit at the side, I believe. I don't remember. I think that's how I'm gonna put it. A little bit on an angle. If I have to adjust it later, I'm gonna adjust it. But we have to make sure also that there's this O-ring inside. And we're gonna tighten it there. And here our pressure relief valve, it has a spring inside, and this spring needs to be, according to the spec, 1.53 inches or 40 millimeters. And it is exactly that, 1.534. So it is good. It goes in like that on the plunger. The plunger goes into the body. There must be a copper washer here, crush washer, and then we just tighten it all the way in. And I think that's going to be everything on this side for now. We're going to do the rest later. And now let's see at the bottom end what we have to do. And here at the bottom we don't have too much stuff to do as well, other than the oil pump and the rear seal, which, if you remember, we have problems with. So let's start with the oil pump. I already have it there at the table. There's three measurements that we need to take and see if we are within tolerances. So the pump has a body. Inside the body we have an outer rotor that can spin, and inside we have an inner rotor. So all that spins like that. How does it work? It's very simple. As it turns, look at these cavities. Look at this one, for example, how as we turn, it becomes bigger and bigger. And then as it comes this way, it becomes smaller and smaller until it disappears completely. and then it starts opening again, becomes bigger, smaller, disappears. So as the cavity becomes bigger, it allows oil to go in through these two holes, but as it moves clockwise, it moves out of that hole from underneath. So now the oil inside cannot escape. And as it goes more clockwise, now it becomes smaller, but now another hole starts opening from underneath and on the cover as well. So now this oil gets squeezed and gets pushed through these two holes up and down, and it goes through the entire engine and lubricates the parts. And then this cavity starts opening again here and does the same cycle over and over again. Keeps grabbing oil from here, from these two holes, and squeezing it into the other two holes, and keeps going over and over again. So for this reason, it is very important that all tolerances here, everything is closed, otherwise the oil is going to escape between the inner and outer rotor or in other directions. So that's why we need to make sure that the rotors are not worn and they don't allow oil to go in places where we don't want it to go. So like I said, there are 3 measurements that we need to have perfect. One is between the body and the outer rotor. That, according to the manual, should be maximum 10 thou. So let's see, that's 10 thou. Can't even squeeze a 10 thou there. 5. Yeah, it's 5 thou max. The other measurement is between the inner and outer rotor, and that is measured in this position right here. That needs to be between 1 and 4 thou. I don't think I have that small. Do I have less than 5? I don't have less than 5 though. Well, 5 doesn't fit. That's good. So it is less than 5, which is definitely acceptable. And then the last measurement is at the top. It needs to be 4 thou. Oops, that's too many. Okay, so we are good. Let's install it in the engine. All right, so here on the TR2, 3 and 4 engine, there is a gasket, but on this engine, there's no gasket. So I always put a little bit of gasket maker here because that would prevent internal bleeding of the engine, you know? Oil can escape in these directions and we don't want it. We want it to be sent down the oil galleries and the hole down the stream where it's supposed to be. That's why I always put gasket maker here. So this is the orientation in which it goes. If you put it the wrong way, it won't match the holes anyways. Then outer rotor, inner rotor, and then the cover. And now what's left is our rear seal, and then we can put the oil sump. So that's our rear seal carrier, and unfortunately on this engine somebody ruined it, and I think it's hard to get by, but somebody used these bolts to hold the cover to the carrier, and that wasn't a very smart move. But maybe we can drill them a little bit bigger and install helicoil inside, or just make bigger threads. Now look, this is the regular bolt that needs to fit there, and I can just pull it out. So one solution is to drill it a little bit bigger and install helicoil. The other solution is to drill it a little bit bigger and tap next size threads. But we're not gonna go through that because luckily we have another one here. that's from our original engine. So I'm just gonna clean this up. We're gonna remove this gasket from here, and we're gonna use this one. And eventually, when we are rebuilding our original engine, we're gonna have to source one of these, because I don't think we are able to save this one. We will see. Anyways, we have a solution for now. The gasket surfaces are cleaned, and I pulled out the old seal, and here we have a new one which we're gonna mount. Just gonna put assembly lube on it so it slides easily. The inside as well, because we're gonna have to put it on the crank soon, just so it doesn't go dry, doesn't need to drag on the metal. So seals always go with the open part towards the oil. Our oil is on this side of the seal carrier, so it needs to go like this. And now, to make sure that it goes all sides at the same time, we're gonna press it like this. I'm gonna put this on top. Good, and now we can install it on the block. Now, this process would be much easier if the engine is not on the stand, but I am being impatient here. I want to complete it, I want to close the engine, and also I'm being lazy. I don't want to take it off and then put it back on. So I'm going to put two of the bolts here just to hold the gasket in place. And the rest we're going to put later. A little bit of assembly lube on the crank for easier sliding of the seal. Okay. There you go. Before we tighten it, we're going to put all the bolts. Perfect. And now we can finally install our oil sump. I've been told I have to do that. That should do it.